Charisma Quotient. I'm your host, Kim Seltzer, a dating and makeover expert, where I will help you build confidence, make connections, and find love from the outside in. Have you ever met someone and felt that instant spark, like something bigger was pulling you towards them, but then over time things just kind of fall apart? Or maybe you've been in a relationship and it looks great on paper, but somehow you didn't feel emotionally connected or compatible with that person over time. I mean, I work with so many different clients, as you know, and a lot of them ask me, like, why do I keep attracting the same type of partner? Why did that intense connection end so painfully? Well, and as a therapist, of course, I always like to find out how the past is connected to the future and the choices we make and the patterns that get created. But your upbringing, your family system, and ascribed roles growing up definitely impacts relationships and dating patterns. For instance, your childhood attachment patterns set the foundation for a lot of the adult love that you find later on. I mean, the way you bonded or maybe didn't bond with your caregivers often becomes the blueprint for how you show up in a romantic relationship. So, for instance, if love felt conditional growing up, you might now overgive, overfunction, or chase unavailable partners. Or if emotions weren't expressed in the family, you may avoid vulnerability and you stay more in factual surface type of relationships or even dates. And that's what I see. You all show up on dates like that. When things get too close, there might be this like shutdown that happens. And a lot of these patterns are unconscious. It's not like we go around consciously knowing that that's our pattern until we bring an awareness to them. And also our past pain creates protective love shields. And I talk about that a lot, that you might have this kind of armor up by being overly independent or guarded against, being hurt, especially as you get older and you're dating later in life. Life has happened. And so we create those filters as we meet people. I remember I was working with this woman, and she just had this pattern of attracting unavailable guys who are narcissists. I mean, I know we hear this a lot, but that truly was her relationship. And every time she would go on a date, she would be attracted to that kind of guy. It was like the same guy in a different costume. And finally, I do this like chemistry analysis with people, and they look at different parts of chemistry. And what we found is that all the guys that she was attracted to, she wasn't emotionally attracted to, but it was more the physical part. So the emotional intelligence was like zero, and the physical was like off the charts. I'm like, well, your type isn't working for you. So I started making her go out with people who it was like lower in the chemistry of the physical, but higher in the emotional. And she meets this guy and she's like, Kimmy, I can't do it. Like, I cannot go on a date. I really like him. He makes me laugh, but I'm just not physically attracted. I said, well, your type isn't working for you. You need to go shopping and just try on different men. And so I had her go on a date with that guy. She comes back and she says, Kimmy, that was the best date I've ever had. I said, really? So what was different? She's like, well, it's the first time I really felt like someone cared, and our conversation just flowed, and he wasn't just complimenting me all the time. We were really compatible in a lot of different ways. Well, that guy ended up being her long-term boyfriend. And the point of me telling you this story is, obviously I work with people's past and creating like almost like a pattern disruption based on what I know. And sometimes the answers aren't just in our patterns or past, they might even be written in the stars. So today I am joined by my amazing friend and Vedic astrologer and relationship coach who has helped countless people decode their romantic lives using the stars. And we're going to dive into something called cosmic compatibility, what Vedic astrology can tell you about attraction, timing, and lasting love. And I'm excited to do this dance with her because we're going to just have this juicy conversation about how the past and the stars can dictate your love choices. And she's been all over the place, by the way. I'm just going to brag on her for a little bit. I mean, she's been featured in Bradzilla's Extra. I forget that you've been doing all these things, Carol. Dr. Drew, Chicken Soup for the Soul. I mean, it goes on and on. And she's just, I mean, a dear friend as well. Welcome, Carol Allen.
Aw, thank you, sweetheart. I really, really appreciate it. It's so lovely to be here with you, charismatic you,
Oh, well,
charismatic Kimmy.
cosmic and charismatic Carol and Kimmy. Oh my God, I can't believe I said that out loud. So here's the thing that I was laughing at. I told you this off air, is that a lot of people don't realize you were on one of my first episodes in 2018, and you were amazing to like give me a chance and say, "Oh my God, I had this amazing person on from one of my first episodes, and now like just years
Aw,
later, you become this awesome friend." But really, like you've helped so many people, and I know we've shared clients too, so it's really kind of cool to do this
yeah.
together again. But for the people who don't know you, obviously, like I really like to hear just more your story because you've also had some twists and turns in the way that you help people.
Oh my gosh, of course. Well, I always joke that we are all our own first customer, that
Right?
anyone who does any kind of helping thing usually comes to it bleeding and crawling with their own misery, right? Their own suffering. So I first had a reading with an astrologer when I was in like a giant life crisis. It was the first time in my life that I'd been like, who am I? What am I doing? Where am I going? And I met a Vedic astrologer at a party and I had a reading and it totally blew my mind. And it brought me so much peace and so much understanding. And he assured me that everything would work out, but not for a while. And he told me exactly when I would get married. And I mean, it was crazy. And then because by then I was like, well, I'm going to become an astrologer too. This is way too cool. So I started going to school for it. And then I started giving readings. And I quickly noticed that just like me, most people that wanted a reading were in some kind of crisis. And overwhelmingly, it was about love and relationships because it is such a primary, it's significant need in humans, the need to connect and the need to have that one-to-one union with another person is very, very, very primal and primary in all of us. So I quickly saw that most people wanted to blame the stars, but to your beautiful work and point with what you were just sharing, so often they had their own, lack of skills or trauma from childhood or horrible examples from mom and dad or rejection from mom and dad or inconsistent love from mom and dad, which sets them up to be drawn to the wrong people and, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I went on a mission to learn all that I could about relationships. I went through a relationship institute and got training and combining the two was so powerful. And now it's just been, 35 years, Kim.
Oh
I
my
mean,
gosh.
it's been
35.
forever. Yeah, it's been forever.
I don't think I've
And
ever, wait, can I ask you? Because I don't
yeah,
think I've ever asked you this. When you were going through all that, had you been in a relationship with your now husband at that time, or were you
well,
single?
it was so interesting because I had met him and we were dating and we really, really liked each other, but he didn't fit my expectation and I didn't fit his. And he had a story that he'd always told himself that he was never going to get married, right? He was going to be like that lone wolf and that like man on the town and that swinging single forever. So, and I was 23 when I met him and so I was just looking to like experience life and have a good time. And he was cute and an actor and a musician and having like the best life of any guy I'd ever met. And so I was like, I want to follow this guy around. So when I met the astrologer, he said, you're too young and your destiny kicks in when you're 30, and that's when you'll marry. And any relationships in your 20s can't be made full. And I was like, oh, well, that can't be right. Right? So I set on a mission to like make this guy wrong. But my husband and I, who was that boyfriend at the time, we were very dramatic because we were both really resisting what was happening. But
Hmm.
the truth is, we were so compatible, so aligned. We felt so good around each other. I felt so soothed and comforted just by his presence. And he was the most interesting man in the world. Like literally, like talking to him, I'm still 35 years later, I've never been bored with my husband, not even once, like, right? And
Wow.
so we were both totally resisting. And he gave me the like, babe, I'm never getting married speech for like 3 years. And I was like, don't flatter yourself. Right? Like, so but as a result, like we kept having drama and I broke up with him 3 times. The poor
Oh,
guy. I
you
broke up with him
did?
three. Oh yeah. Cause
Oh, I didn't know that.
yeah. And he's also like very different from me. He's introverted. He's very sensitive. He's an artist. He needs a lot of time alone. And he had behaviors that mystified me. Like I took things personally and I had all these like decisions about what it meant and blah, blah, blah. So anyway, but when we were together, it was always like, like I'd be so in a tizzy away from him. And then as soon as we were together, it was like, oh, well, you're my person. So he actually ultimately asked me to marry him. And I was like, wait, what? But by then I was also an astrologer and I knew it wasn't time for me to marry anybody. And I didn't feel ready. So I said no. And he was super heartbroken. And then all of a sudden we were in a bad rom com, right? All of a sudden he was like, marry me or let me go. And I was like, wait, when did you become the girl? Right. And so we broke up for 4 long years. And it was the best thing that could have happened,
Yeah.
Kimmy, because that is when I went on a mission to learn all that I could about relationships.
Hmm.
And, and literally 3 days into what I call a season of love, he came back into my life on his white horse and he said everything out of the movies. And I was like, oh my God, is it him? Because all those years I'd been expecting that it was somebody new I would meet, right? And lo and behold, it was him. And it was such a gift that I had done all that work and I learned all
Mhm.
that I had learned because then we were completely different. So, as a longtime therapist and now coach yourself, people have to have the skills to be in a relationship. It's not enough to have
Right.
this like great alignment and compatibility and connection and chemistry, all of which we had. If you don't know how to communicate effectively, if you don't understand the differences in the genders, if you don't understand, you know, how to show up in a way that inspires and creates harmony and connection, you're going to screw it up. And so I did a lot of that. And so did he, quite honestly. And it was so funny when he said everything out of the movies. He was like, "Can we be like we were?" And I was like, "Do you remember how we were?" Right? And it just makes me laugh. We've been married almost 28 years this
Uh,
fall, and we are just so steady Eddie and so almost boring. Like I never call my friends to complain about him. I've never once thought of leaving him. Like it's such a relief. It's so nice. It's so nice.
well, and I hope you don't mind where we started with your relationship as we like talk about this because I think you're such a
I don't
perfect
mind at all.
example of
Mm,
like, because I wondered back then as you were learning all the stuff about, astrology,
mm.
were you guys in the stars? Like, was it supposed to be like a compatible type of thing? And
Well, thank you for asking because one of my mentors, when he looked at our charts, he said, Carol, this is the best compatibility I have ever seen in 29 years of giving readings.
wow.
Now, the thing about that
Yeah.
was I thought that that meant we had a guarantee, right? That we were golden. And that it meant, again, that I didn't have to have good skills, right? And so but it was really reassuring. And then when we did come back together, because by then I was also an astrologer, it gave me the confidence that I could bet on this horse, so to speak, right? And so, there is this technique from ancient India that's been used for millennia, they think, to arrange marriages. And do you know 90% of people in India still get their marriage arranged?
Oh, I know. I heard that too. Yeah.
And overwhelmingly, the population is Hindu. It's the majority of the population. And they use this technology as one of the ways they
Ah,
decide, right? And so the techniques for compatibility and for mate selection are so crazy good, Kimmy. It's
huh,
actually, if it wasn't for these techniques, I would not still be an astrologer because
right.
prior to me knowing them, it was just not, I wasn't able to be as helpful or specific or detailed, but it allows me to see with total clarity exactly the workable and what's not, because as a prior therapist and now coach, we make up so many stories,
Mm.
right? And we tell ourselves so much emotional nonsense. And a big one is, if they really loved me, they'd behave this way, which I used to do, right? If they really loved me, if he really loved me, he wouldn't be so introverted. If he really loved me, he'd want to go to a giant party with me and stay for 7 hours, like I want to do, right? Like
Right.
if he really loved me, right?
Right.
He'd be different, right? And so it's such a gift to be able to help people understand what can they affect and what can't they, and how can they accept each other more. You mentioned conditional love in your beautiful talk at the start, and most of us got the message that love is only given if we perform a certain way, right? Mommy and daddy will get angry if you don't perform a certain way, and they'll withhold loving gestures often, right? Or loving words. And they'll become stern and maybe even punishing and maybe even separate you from the family if you don't perform a certain way. And so a lot of us never feel truly loved, right? We only feel loved if we do certain things, or if we look a certain way, or if we lose weight. I mean, as a beautiful, amazing image consultant, so many people will say, well, I mean, I can't date until I lose 20 pounds, or I can't date until,
Oh, yeah.
I paint my house. And it's just an emotional story that simply isn't true.
Well, and not only that, and I'm glad we're like highlighting the dance between the cosmic and the past, and because it is all intertwined.
For sure.
Not only is it something that is conditioned, but we get reinforced to be a certain way. And that's where our confidence ends up living. So if we were
Yeah.
reinforced to be an over caregiver, for instance, we
Yes.
proceed dating and attracting people as an over caretaker. And then we get surprised that we attract a narcissist because they love caregivers,
Yeah.
because they like the attention. So it's all, that. And so I love that you actually took a break for 4 years, you and your hubby. Like you went through your
Yeah.
own journeys to like
Yeah.
figure yourself out. And I'm sure some of it had to do
Yeah.
with the past. Um, so I wanted to, well, first of all, because we haven't really even defined what like cosmic compatibility is. Well, we just kind of throw it out. Can you define that? And then how do you use that, in ways of like helping people?
Okay. Well, so in the ancient books of Vedic astrology, they basically say, people always think like, oh, if we're compatible, that's the most important thing. And so many of us heard about astrology because of Linda Goodman, right? Who wrote like sun signs and love signs. And she was the first and probably only astrologer to ever be on the New York Times bestseller list, right? Because
Oh,
she was such an amazing writer and her books were so much fun and so specific and so charming. And the truth is, more important than compatibility, way more important, is who is each person. And does each person have the emotional health to be anybody's partner? So there are techniques for what are called capacity
ooh,
that show, can you be a good partner to anybody? Or are you too sensitive, too angry, too moody, too introverted, too independent, too, depressive? And then there's the question of like, is it your destiny to partner? Because look around. We thank goodness, have so many options today. We can be poly, we can be single forever, we can
Hmm.
have, many short-term relationships, we can have many long-term, we can be serial monogamous. There's no wrong or right way. There's no more shame anymore, even though people still feel a lot, I think, especially with divorce. But there's so much more permission to be who we are. And not everybody has the nature to partner forever, right? Or to be monogamous. And you can see that stuff in the
Are
charts.
you serious? Oh my God.
Yes. And
I'm
you,
so excited to hear more about because you and I were talking also that sometimes like people will hear about this stuff and they're like, "Oh, this is like woo woo." And if people aren't woo, then they're like, "Oh, I can't." But what I love about you is you bring kind of the practical tactical side of this stuff and like
yeah,
there's actual techniques. So I want to
right.
yeah, can you name a couple of them or
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Well,
yeah.
when people haven't had direct experience,
Yeah.
and I have to say, I never care if people believe in astrology or not. When they don't, I always know they just haven't had consistent direct experience. I will say I get a little annoyed when friends who claim to love me and blah, blah, blah tell me it's all hogwash because that's like saying me talking to thousands of people for 35 years and having conversations with total strangers where I say, oh, you broke your right foot, right? And oh, your mom was an alcoholic, right? And oh, you probably got married in 1989, right? Like for them to tell me it's hogwash when I have so much direct experience. I mean, like 1 billion hours of total strangers telling me that every single thing in the chart was true. It's kind
Wow.
of offensive. I'm not
Yeah.
gonna
You
lie.
got a good track record,
Like
so
I'm not like making up. Well, and it's
yeah.
not about me. It's that I have been so fortunate to have the most incredible teachers and to learn this unbelievable technology that just flippin' works. So cosmic compatibility is when so once you've decided like okay this person's capacity is good enough, right,
Yeah.
then you look to how are these two people together. And I love when you said at the top, oh, have you ever just immediately felt a connection or immediately felt a spark? So cosmic compatibility is sort of a little term I coined. I mean, it's just fun, right? It's just kind of playful. But it's to really say that compatibility isn't just who are you in your life, what's your race, what's your religion, what's your socioeconomic level, what's your education level. It's nice when all that stuff is compatible. It's just going to be easier, right? If you're as much as alike with your partner as possible. But if you have all that stuff and you don't have the cosmic stuff, which is
Ah,
energetic, right? Which is that when you're with the person, there's just an affinity. You just get each other. You just feel comfortable to be yourself. It it just flows. You just feel good together, right? And things like chemistry are not having to be forced. And things like communication is not forced. So I'll give you a cute example. We both are friends with Matt Boggs. Okay.
yes, yes.
So Matt Boggs is a fellow love coach,
Yep.
totally sweet guy, makes a million videos, like brilliant, brilliant, brilliant guy. He is married to this fantastic woman and they met and right away he was like Shazam, right? Well, for 3 months she was like she was kind of cold, right? But they fell in love and they got married and he had me on his interview series or podcast, I don't remember what it was, and I looked at their charts and I said, Matt, you're going to be mad at me because I know you're a love coach and, it's nice if we look like we know what we're doing. We have these amazing skills. But I said, you and Irene are so compatible. You guys practically finish each other's sentences. You're completely on the same page. You have so much ease and agreement.
Oh,
It's like effortless to merge your lives. And he goes, oh my God, I can't believe you just said that. He said, we absolutely always want the same things, whether it's how many kids to have, what house to buy, like how to handle our finances. He said, even at our wedding, like we didn't fight about one thing. We wanted the same things, down to how many Jordan almonds to put in
yeah.
the favors. And he said, we have friends where everything's a battle, everything's a compromise, everything's a sacrifice, and they never agree. And I said, right. And that has nothing to do with how well do you communicate? How
Mm.
easily, how respectful are you of your partner? It's like you either want the same stuff or you don't. You're either in like that frequency of alignment and ease and flow. So back to me and my husband, right? Like on
Right.
paper, couldn't have been more different. I was vegetarian. He was a Texan who barbecued every meal. I was a little UC Berkeley graduate who loved, academia. He was a high school dropout at 17. Like on and on and on. Like he's an introvert, I'm an extrovert, but our charts together were like, oh, and it's just we agree on everything. We wanted the same house. We both didn't want kids. We both, you know, wanted to take care of our parents when they were dying. Nobody had to go, really? Your mom's moving in, right?
Yeah.
Like everything is so like we can take no credit. And that is what I want for people, right? That is
Mm.
what I want where you're not putting a square peg in a round hole, where you're with the person where it works. So this technique, would you like me to tell you the steps of it? Because
I
it's
mean, if you don't
crazy.
mind divulging your secrets right here on this episode.
Well, you know what I love about the technique is the
Yeah.
philosophy of what they deemed important are all included in the technique. So the
Okay.
first thing they deem important, and it's one of the most important of the steps, is do your circumstances support you coming together? Now that's different than are you on the same wavelength? You might communicate great with somebody. You might agree on everything. You might want to go to all the same places and vote the same and decorate your house the same. But if you have this connection called obstacles, it will make it
Mm.
so that like your friends and family are always in the way, or you can't get jobs in the same city, or one of you always has a health problem. Like and it's not about do you get along? It's about is there a destiny between you that you can join your lives? And if there's not, it's not about free will. It's not about trying harder. If there's not, there's not. So it's really intense. And those are the readings that are really hard for me, right? Because you might have some of the most magical connections with someone where you feel a rightness and you feel so drawn to the person and so connected, but then you always hit a wall. Like you always come up against these insurmountable problems. So obstacles is the first one. The next one is what's called misfortune. And I hate that it's called that because it doesn't mean you're cursed together. What it actually means is that the energy between you gets like short circuited, right? And so you'll be going along. Think of it like a relationship is a vehicle you both get into, and you'll be going along and you'll be driving down the road and everything's moving and grooving. And then all of a sudden you blow a tire, right? Or like your fuel
Um,
injection explodes or the carburetor falls out and you're like in a ravine or you're spinning out. And these are the couples where they don't even know what happened, but suddenly they're in drama and suddenly they're in crisis. And it's nobody's fault. And I'll say to people like, oh, wow, you guys just cannot move forward very far. You'll just like, and they always say, right. And then there's one that has to do with like what temperament you are.
hmm.
So there's windy, watery, fiery. Now, in regular astrology, there's also earthy, and in natal reading in Vedic astrology, there's earthy. But in this technique, it's just windy, watery, fiery. And you would think it'd be good to be the same as your partner because that would make you alike. Well, what it does is it creates an imbalance of that element. So if you're both fiery, it creates a lot of chemistry, but a lot of arguing. These are the couples who it's like they cannot keep the peace. They bicker. They're always annoyed. It's like they're always throwing Molotov cocktails at each other, right? So it's like, couples where they're both watery get their feelings hurt all the time. The water element is emotion and it makes the connection too emotional and small things become a big deal. I had this with a prior business partner and he would say one suggestion and I'd have to go to bed. Like I'd be devastated. Right? And I was like, what is wrong with me? Am I in love with him or something? And I looked it up and I was like, there it is,
Oh,
right? There it is.
interesting.
Um,
So
then there's,
this could be
yeah.
beyond just romantic
Oh, yeah,
compatibility. That's what's really
totally.
okay. Okay.
Can affect business. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. And then there's are you both windy? And two windy people, they get into analysis paralysis. They overthink everything, they overtalk everything. These are the couples that have to process constantly. And it's so interesting when you read about this, it says if both people are the same element, they won't be able to sleep together. They will have eating issues, sleep disruption. They won't be healthy. They will sometimes have to sleep apart or live apart. Like, so guess who had that? Princess Diana and Prince Charles, when he was Prince Charles,
Oh, wow.
they had that. And she had, eating disorders, and she like threw herself down a flight of stairs. Like, she was so miserable and she never felt secure. It actually says if they're both windy, the wife will die. And it doesn't mean literally, but like she was never able to relax and know he was really there for her. So that's another one. And when these things are not a problem, they're not a problem. So a lot of the time I'll see for people like, yay, you're good to go. And I don't know, how much time we have, but do you want me to keep going?
Well, no, this is so good. How about one more? And then I have a question
Okay.
around this. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so one more, I'll tell you a good one because I sort of it's been too negative. So let me tell you a good one. A good one is one called innate giving. And when couples have this innate giving connection, they like want to do for each other. And I'll say to people, do you find yourself showing up for this relationship in ways you can't imagine? Like are you a way better partner to this person than you've been in the past? And they always say yes, like they want to do for them stuff they never wanted to do for anyone else, right? And it's so sweet. And it's one of the soulmate connections that we want to see between two people. So that's just like a taste of the
It's a
15
teaser.
things.
I want so
It's a
much.
teaser.
That's why people have to come to you to get a reading so they can understand all
Yeah,
this.
and I have a report on it if they don't want to come to me and get a reading. And it's
Amazing.
super affordable and it's like a 9 to 11 pages. Yeah, and it'll tell you, but people will write to me and they'll go, damn it. You know what I mean? So you have to be willing to hear the truth, right? You have to be willing to hear the truth.
It's true. Well, and as you were talking about the different things like obstacles, the misfortune and the temperament, all that stuff, I was also thinking as a therapist, I'm like, well, because you could also think about the reasons why somebody is the way they are, based on some of the temperaments that you see and the obstacles. What
Well,
I
that's
find,
more the capacity thing. This is like
aha,
this is an inborn temperament. It's sort of like saying you have green eyes, right? This
got it.
isn't like something that shaped you or happened to you. This is how you were preloaded at the factory.
Yes, yes, like nature versus nurture. Yeah. And I believe in that
Yeah,
for sure. Because I mean, a baby
yeah,
comes out a certain way, and then the environment
totally.
reacts to that baby's temperament. So I
For sure.
agree with that. But also, like the obstacle thing. So, and maybe you can touch on this because I see, and this is where we're all trying to do like going against the patterns that people pick, where
Mm,
you know how like somebody will be drawn to a certain type of person. So, for instance,
hmm
like there was a client who I've been working with, and she's just drawn to that bad boy, right?
mm,
And even though she knows it's not good for her,
yeah.
there's a principle in psychology called the familiarity principles that we are all
Mm,
drawn to what we're familiar with, good, bad, or indifferent, because it's a known entity and it's the brain's way of having a corrective experience where like, oh, well, this time it'll be different. It's subconscious, but yet we still
yeah.
pick the same thing. So can you
Yeah.
touch on like how like from your standpoint people can get away from that because I mean there's just a propensity that people are going to have given their upbringing.
Well, I will tell you, we have what are called seasons and cycles, right? And
Yeah.
so sometimes people are just in a season of loneliness where everyone they meet is just going to like be hard,
Yeah.
right? And or they're going to be rejected by, or it's going to be a learning experience. It's going to be a character developing experience,
Yes.
right? And then other times we're in a time where it's time and where there's the healthy person and you actually want them, right? So it's hard to say exactly what's happening for everyone because for some people it's because it's just the wrong time. And when we're in the wrong time, we attract the wrong people.
Yeah.
Or like my chart said I couldn't marry until I was 30, but I met my husband when I had this gorgeous season of love thing happening. And so it was like, that energy brought him in, but then it wasn't time to fully join our lives, right? And so this is where you have to sort of parse out like what is going on.
Right.
And here's what I want to say to everybody. We are not here to have perfect lives with no struggle and everything just like be about the goal, right? So you and I tend to hear from people that want to get married or they want the one. They're not interested in just having fun or meeting people. I mean, maybe you have people that do want to learn flirting and just want to date, but overwhelmingly, I hear from people like they're sick of that and they just want their person. And so I'll sometimes see like, hey, you're in a beautiful time to date and learn and grow, but it's not time for your person. And then they'll say, well, then forget it. Like, I'm just not going to do it. I'm
Yeah.
just going to stay home. I'm going to get another cat, which, by the way, everyone should get another cat. I'm all for it.
Well, of course you are, given that you have like 12 cats all the time. I hear from you. Yeah.
I wish. But anyway, so we're here to have rich, full lives and to have experiences. And so even when the charts aren't ideal, I'm the first to say if you feel called to have this experience, have it. It means there's a gift for you. It means there's something you're supposed to learn from, right? A lot of people marry the wrong people, quote unquote, and then they get their amazing kids, right? So it's like women will tell me, and it's funny, I was talking about Princess Diana, even Princess Diana knew, right? She had a voice that said, you will never be queen, but you'll play an important role. And she knew before the wedding about Camilla and she went through with it, right? And so if you feel like I'm supposed to do this, sometimes that truly is your soul talking. Sometimes it's your desire or your ego,
Mhm.
but sometimes it really is your soul. So I don't I don't want people to use astrology to limit themselves. I want them to use astrology to have their eyes open to where they are in their lives and to how to make the most of things.
I love that you clarified that. That's super important because even like in your story, that 4 years was crucial for you. And even if it's not the
Huge.
season to meet your guy tomorrow and ride off,
Yeah.
in the sunset on the horse,
Yeah.
maybe it is your time to pull in and really like look at the shifts you can make to be ready for that.
Oh my God. I grew
Um,
so much. I learned all about relationships and I dated all the people I was supposed to marry. I dated all the
oh,
people who were
I love
right for
it.
me on paper. I dated all
Yeah.
the guys with big degrees and money and blah, blah, blah. I had dates with guys where they would literally say, I'm going to retire by 40 and you could just travel with what you do, right? And I'd be like, why don't I like him? Why don't I like him? Right. And so that was a really valuable time. So that when my husband came back, I was so happy to say you and only you. I've been to the banquet, I've tasted all the treats, you and only you.
I love that. Okay, last question. Then I know I have so many more, but I know we have to wrap up. Um, is there a way that people can actually seek out their cosmic person? Like, are there clues to look for, things to do to create that, opportunity?
Well, I really believe that what we want, like what we truly want, what we want from our deepest selves is true for us and is meant for us. So if you have that dream, what I see a lot when people come to see me, one of their main questions is the when question, like
Yeah, yeah,
when will this happen? Or when, blah, blah, blah. And I hate, I both love and hate the one question, right?
right.
Because so often people have told themselves a story. This has to happen by this time. I have to have this by
Yeah.
this, or it's not meant for me. And a lot of people use the language of like, why does everybody else get this and I don't?
Mm,
Right.
yeah.
And I'll see that they're not in their season or it's not their time. And it doesn't mean anything's wrong. And so what I want people to do is trust the larger story and trust the larger system they're working within that's not up to them. And every day, just do the next right thing and let go of timelines and let go of like, this has to happen by this time or else, because you might be robbing yourself of having that rich, full life you're supposed to have.
Beautiful. And that's even with like, I teach flirting and stuff like that. I always say like,
I love your
well,
teaching.
but it's all like because what people do so much is they get ahead of things and they're outcome based. And that's not what flirting
Yeah,
is about. That's not what you're saying your time is about. And so
right.
like, the more you stay present and really
Yeah,
just focus in and look at some of these things, like, with the capacity and all that stuff, that's when things happen. I truly believe it because then you're also more
yeah,
aware, when you stay present like that. Okay, Carol, where
yeah.
can everybody find you? And
Ah,
like, I know you have some juicy gifts and ways that you can help people.
I do. Well, I live at, I'll just give my easy URL, which is
Oh,
Soulmate
I think you're going to give your like
Stars.
real address. I'm like, be careful because you get a lot
No,
of
no,
people
no.
knocking on your door.
No, no, no. I live at soulmatestars.com. Can you believe that's my URL?
Oh
It's
my
so hilarious. Soulmatestars.com. And I do consultations and you have a link if people want to get a consultation and I'll sweeten the deal. The link is so I know that it's from the show so that I can also add to the consultation. I have these amazing calendars that are like your horoscope every day in symbols using your whole chart, not just your sun sign,
God. Mm.
but and they have like hearts for best days for love, smiley face for best career days, indicators of like when it's good to travel, when you might want to lay low, take better care of yourself, etc. And so it's a planning tool and I normally sell them for 125 bucks and you get one for free if you get a session. So,
Oh my gosh. I need
yeah.
one, by the way. We keep saying,
Oh my God, I'll totally get you.
yes.
I will text you right after this because they're
Okay.
digital. So I'll totally get
Yes, everybody
you. I
needs to take advantage of
apologize.
that. Yeah, including myself. So, Carol, I love you so much. Thank you
I love you
so
so much.
much
And
for coming on.
congratulations on all you've created with this amazing podcast and your wonderful audience you've built. And I'm honored to be invited back and
Oh
to
my
be
gosh.
an
The honor
early
is mine,
guest.
full circle. So, thank you. All right.
Yay!
And thank you for listening and joining today. This has been the Charisma Quotient, as always, and I'm your host, Kimmy Seltzer. Remember, you can build confidence, make connections, and find love from the outside in. And if you are wanting to break patterns in your love life, definitely check out Carol's gift or hop on a private call with me to flush out what might be causing some of that and finding ways to attract the right partner for you. And imagine just getting some ideas, like even if it's just like one gold nugget that could break the cycle that you've been dealing with on just one call or just one reading with Carol. Just click the link you see in the show notes. I'll put her stuff in there as well. And remember, working on you is working on your dating life. That's all for now.